I remember loving this campaign back in the day and playing through it for at least 10 times. But will I still feel like going back to this campaign every now and then, even after the 11th time?
No, I don't think I will.
So that was a fucking lie, because after reviewing Bad Company 2 and deleting the game from my PC, I realized I also wanted to make an Easter egg video.
Oh shit, here we go again.
Hey guys, it's Matt here, and even after playing this campaign for the 12th time, I'm still not sick of it, which is not a thing I can say for most Battlefield campaigns.
How's your mother, Nick?
Anyway, in recent years, Battlefield has become one of the biggest online shooters ever. But not just for its 64 and now 128 player online mayhem, because ever since Battlefield 3, Easter egg hunting has become almost as important in these games as the shooting itself. Especially after the Phantom program in Battlefield 4, where players from all over the world worked together to uncover every little secret in the game, these huge Easter eggs were pretty much expected to be in every game from that point on. But Bad Company 2 is a different story. This was before all that, and when you get used to dinosaurs, Morse code and huge sharks, it can be kind of underwhelming to go back to sandcastles and Call of Duty references. But because I love this game and I will do anything to squeeze out another video of it, here are all the Easter eggs, secrets, references and other things I could find in Battlefield Bad Company 2. And this time I'm only 12 years too late. Starting off with the campaign, and it might surprise you that there are still a lot of small things to find here that are worth talking about. In the very first mission after the prologue, Cold War, you can find several things. Starting off with the very first shot in which the camera pans along a sign with a skull on it. People who played online games between 2009 and 2015 might recognize this from the free-to-play online game Battlefield Heroes. The same skull is used for the flag of the National Army in the game. And now that I'm talking about Battlefield Heroes, this game was absolutely awesome and fun and such a unique spin on the Battlefield formula, and it never should have gotten taken down. I mean, sure, it was a free-to-play game under EA, which of course means it's pay to win, and the player base wasn't that big, and the game only had a few game modes, and the whole play for free model by EA was a scam, and the game had a huge security breach in 2011. But I still loved it and I want it back. Anyway, rant over, let's move on. In the same mission you'll find some Easter eggs in the cutscene where the gang talks to their commanding officer Braidwood. Not only do you see the Bad Company smiley hanging on the board behind them, you know, the one used in both this game and its predecessor, but you can also find a picture of Faith, main protagonist of the Mirror's Edge series. What some people might not know is that Battlefield and Mirror's Edge are made by the same developer, DICE. And speaking of DICE, on Braidwood's desk you'll find a mug with DICE's logo on it. Though it would be one of the first times we'd see this Easter egg in Bad Company 2, it definitely wouldn't be the last time, since this mug can be found in several Battlefield games. But let's keep talking about Mirror's Edge for a while. This game is all about free running, and main protagonist Faith initially uses her free running skills to deliver goods and information as part of an underground career crew. Throughout the game, as well as on much of the promotional material, Faith can be seen carrying a bright yellow bag. These bags are used within the game to transport said goods and information. If we go back to Bad Company 2, in the mission High Value Target, we can see this exact yellow bag on top of a closet in one of the cutscenes. Next up, in the mission Heart of Darkness, the squad makes their way through a small building filled with boxes. Though it can be easily overlooked, if you look at these boxes you can see a familiar logo. N7 is the code for people who graduated from the interplanetary combat training in the Mass Effect series of video games. Of course, main protagonist Commander Shepard can also be seen wearing this code. Fun fact, if you make your way through the same building after the cutscene, not a single trace of these boxes can be found. The next two references are probably the most well-known references in the game. You see, in 2010 there was this other kind of well-known shooter franchise that might have gotten some attention as well around that time. And with kind of well-known franchise, I mean the franchise that literally revolutionized the first-person shooter genre, and with some attention, I mean the highest and fastest selling game of all time. I of course talk about Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2. Battlefield Bad Company 2 was a direct competitor to this incredibly popular sequel. And because of that, as I've said in my previous Bad Company 2 video, of course a 2010 game wouldn't be complete without some sort of step towards Call of Duty. And so it did. The first reference can be found in the mission Snowblind, where Sweetwater says this.
I should clear this with Braidwood.
No. He'll just send some special ops douchebags with pussy-ass heartbeat monitors on their guns instead of us.
This is a reference to the Modern Warfare 2 mission Cliffhanger, where main protagonists Soap and Roach have to infiltrate a military base during a snowstorm, using heartbeat sensors on their weapons to navigate through the blizzard. Later on in the game, during the mission No One Gets Left Behind, the gang has to save their helicopter pilot Flynn from a POW camp. After saving him, they race each other on quad bikes on their way to the helicopter. While driving, the following conversation occurs.
If this was a snowmobile race, I'd get out. It's not a snowmobile. Snowmobiles are for
This snowmobile slander is also a reference to the same mission, since Soap and Roach eventually flee the military base on snowmobiles. But to my surprise, this mission is actually full of little secrets. The first one can be found right before infiltrating the first part of the POW camp. Most people will probably go right and follow this little bridge to the camp, but instead you can also go to the left. Not only is this an alternate path into the camp, but this path is also filled with booby traps you have to disarm. After disarming them, have a look at the side of the explosive that would have otherwise exploded. It says made with pride in Sweden, of course referencing the fact that DICE is originally a company from Sweden. But this one isn't necessarily linked to this mission, since you can find the same message on lots of objects throughout the game. Making your way through the camp, you might have noticed that some extra blue Doritos have popped up on your minimap. No, it's not a glitch, because what the game never tells you is that apart from Flynn, you can also save 3 additional POWs in these camps. Each one has a small line of dialogue in order to show their gratitude.
Dude, I owe you one.
And they even help you fight for a little while. But the secrets in this mission just keep going. We already talked about the Call of Duty reference during the quad bike race, but this dialogue has always been more about Haggard and Sweetwater racing each other. However, you're unknowingly just as much a part of the race, and if you manage to overtake all of your squad mates, you get to hear some hidden dialogue.
Wow. Marlo, you done impressed me. We're gonna NASCAR when we get back. On me.
I gotta say, man, you took the sting out of losing to Haggard. Thanks.
If this has taught you anything, Sweets, it is that I am superior to you in all ways that matter.
To a redneck.
Small side note, even though there's a lot of parts in the game where some hidden dialogue occurs, I'm only going to show you this one, otherwise this would become a 30-minute video of you guys listening to conversations, which is not what I want this video to be. Anyway, moving on. The last Easter egg I found in this mission can also be found throughout the game. You can find exploding barrels in pretty much every level, as well as in the multiplayer. However, take a look at the exploding crates instead. The logo might be familiar to people who've played Burnout 3. This logo is very similar, if not exactly the same, as the one used for the Crash Breaker ability in that game. Just like the exploding crates in Battlefield, Crash Breaker causes your car to spontaneously explode in Burnout. On the mission Sangre del Toro, you can make your way through a huge desert, clearing out enemy positions along the way. Near one of these enemy hideouts, you'll come along a narrow mountain path. At some point while walking here, you suddenly hear this. I honestly have no idea why this is here or what it's supposed to be. All I know is that back in 2010 this scared the ever-loving shit out of me because I thought my game copy was haunted and I was going to become the very next Ben Drowned creepypasta. And for the final few Easter eggs in the campaign, we have to go to the final mission, Airborne, in which the squad boards a huge airplane and pretty much destroys it. But before taking the plane down, you can find some fun secrets here. First of all, this poster, promoting kiwis, has the text "Just Eat It" on it. Probably a reference to Weird Al Yankovic's 1984 song Eat It, a parody on Michael Jackson's 1982 song Beat It. Right next to this poster you can also find some pictures which are most likely photos of the developers themselves. After eventually destroying the plane and landing back on the ground, Haggard watches some road signs in order to confirm they've landed in Texas. But upon further inspection you can also see the number 1942 on one of the road signs, an obvious reference to Battlefield 1942. As much as I love the fact that I could find a lot more fun little things in the single player than I initially expected, unfortunately the same cannot be said for the multiplayer. Let's start with something small. On the map Oasis, destroy one of these boxes right here. You'll notice some pink teddy bears will drop out of the box. At first glance not that important, but just like the dice mug, this is a returning Easter egg within the franchise. Then on the map Atacama Desert, make your way along the water near the huge stranded oil tanker in the middle of the map. Right behind some small rocks you can find this tiny sandcastle. Not only is this a returning Easter egg, since the same sandcastle can be found in Battlefield 1943, but if you look closely you can see the Swedish flag, yet again a reference to DICE's Swedish roots. On several maps you can use a UAV drone. When you use it you can hear some people talking in the background, and if you listen closely you can sometimes hear some funny dialogue. And sadly, that is actually everything there is to find in the multiplayer, which is pretty underwhelming. However, luckily there's also Battlefield Bad Company 2 Vietnam, the DLC for this game set in the Vietnam War. Let's start with some movie references. If you think of the Vietnam War, most people who are into films will probably immediately think of the 1979 masterpiece Apocalypse Now, a hugely important movie about the Vietnam War, the psychological consequences of warfare, and surfing? Well, okay, this movie is definitely not some sort of Platoon/Point Break crossover, but the movie does include a scene in which some of the soldiers actually go surfing amidst the chaos. When playing on the map Operation Hastings, you can find several surfboards that even look very familiar to the ones used in the movie. Probably one of the most well-known scenes from this movie is when a bunch of Huey and Little Bird helicopters fly in formation while Richard Wagner's Ride of the Valkyries can be heard through a loudspeaker. Even though there aren't enough helicopters in this game to fully recreate the scene, you can still sort of do it. That's because in the Vietnam War, many of the soldiers listened to the radio while in Vietnam, and music was an important part of boosting morale. Bad Company 2 acknowledges this by including onboard radio for a lot of different vehicles. The radio includes many Vietnam War era songs by artists and composers such as John O'Brien Docker and Creedence Clearwater Revival. But of course, Wagner's Ride of the Valkyrie is also in there. However, as of 2022, I somehow can't seem to make the damn radio work. Maybe that's because all the music in the game has been removed due to expired licenses. Maybe the radio only works if more players are inside a match. I really don't know. Luckily, I can use my great magical powers of video editing to show you what this used to look and sound like back in the day. Moving on to the map Phu Bai Valley, where right outside the borders of the map you can find a huge crashed airplane. This is a B-52 Stratofortress, a US Army carpet bomber which had seen extensive use during the Vietnam War. Even though this isn't necessarily an Easter egg, nor is it hidden, I still wanted to include this find, since it has absolutely no purpose here other than environmental storytelling, yet the developers went the extra mile to still model a full-sized airplane, which is cool. And finally, in several maps within the Vietnam DLC, you can find these portable radios. Some of them remain silent, but there are a few which tend to make some sound every now and then. I'll play out the sound in a bit, but first I'd like to thank you for watching this video. If you enjoyed, please consider liking the video and subscribing to my channel. It's greatly appreciated. And for now, I hope to see you in my next video and enjoy this final secret I could find, as well as feasting your eyes upon the single most disgusting thumb model I've ever seen in a video game. Bye!